Thank you for asking me here to talk about this. The Fragile States Index is an internationally recognized survey and research that is done in 179 countries in our world to see how resilient or how fragile the country is. And they use a set of internationally recognized indicators in 5 categories that help us understand what it means to be resilient or what it means to be fragile. In other words, how well is the country providing for the people that live in the country and work in the country?
If you look at the indicators in the current report, which are the indicators that are most preoccupying, because the Kòrsou scores are relatively low on this FSI?
Actually, the interesting piece about Kòrsou is that we seem to score low across all 5 areas of indicators. In some countries, you see that one of the indicators is weaker than all of the rest. And in our case, it seems that we are fragile across all 5 areas of the indicators. So that should be concerning to us. The FSI, Fragile States Index, is used in other countries by elected officials, by development banks, by organizations to determine how to fund individual projects that are going to lift the country out of fragility or bring about more resilient characteristics. So because all 5 areas are low, this means that we have to really look at a more comprehensive way of addressing the results of the survey and the research.
If you were to prioritize one of these indicators, which one would it be?
I think that there are 2 that are closely tied to each other. That is the capacities of state and politics, okay, which are 2 categories. Capacity of state is about leadership, okay? Politics is about this stability of leadership, okay? So one is about, do you have the right people in the right place with the right skills to lead? And the other is, are the institutions strong enough to lead you out of fragility?
You mean by strong, independent enough?
Independent and also doing their job. So the institutions of government, are they functioning well? Is the judiciary functioning well? Is the civil service functioning well? Are the police functioning well? In our case, the military, which is provided by the kingdom, is it functioning well? And by looking at those capacities of state, we can then better measure whether the institutions are doing their job. Are we catching criminals? Do we have an integrity system that's working? How prevalent is corruption? Those kinds of questions help us understand whether our state is fragile or our state is resilient. The Think to Do Institute is an internationally recognized global think tank that is located in Kòrsou. Okay, our work is apolitical. We have no connections to any political party of any kind. We have no connections to the unions. We have no connections to the commercial sector. We're totally independent, and we focus on resilience. So we focus on resilient people, resilient place, resilient knowledge, resilient leadership, and the effects of the 4th Industrial Revolution, which is the impact of the internet on everything, okay? And that piece also guides our discussion about resilience, because if 20% of your people don't have connections to the internet, they become distanced from the country itself. So we're very interested in seeing how resilient our people are, how resilient our place is. And all of our research, whether it's about mindset, whether it's about economy, whether it is about the governance structures themselves, it all leads us back to this notion of resilience. You want me to express how old I am? No. I came to Curaçao in early 2002 as a result of a request from the government that they wanted to work on collaboration between the unions, the commercial sector, and the government. So for 12 years, I was the facilitator of the social dialogue platform of the country. And that institute was called Colaborativo, and it was made up of the leaders of the government, whichever leaders there were, the leaders of the commercial sector, the leaders of the central unions. And we met on an every other week basis to discuss critical aspects of the economy and labor force development. After that, I went away and I worked in other think tanks in the world, and then I came back in 2019 to help start a think tank, which is something quite different than anything that has existed in Curaçao before. The main aim is to improve the quality of life of people who live in these countries. Okay, so each country that agrees to participate or goes through the research of the Fragile States Index has a better idea of how to improve their country. How do you pull yourself out of the fragility? For example, one area that it looks at is cohesion. Okay, how social cohesion. So how do people in your country feel about a sense of belonging? Do they really feel as though they belong in this country? How do you manage migration? How do you manage immigration? How do you manage brain drain? All of those sorts of topics help you understand, oh gosh, we should have a better migration policy. We should have a better population policy. We need to grow our economy, so we need to grow our population in order to match that. So what the research helps us do is look at other countries who are doing better than we are and see what they are doing in order to be more resilient than us. But we have to have this baseline of information. So in 2020, we started in the think tank to look at the Fragile States Index. Now we have repeated it with an addendum and now a full-fledged evaluation again in 2022. So are we getting better? Are we getting worse? Are we staying the same? One of the things that is extremely important, and I always start presentations about the FSI with this statement: we are fragile because of one huge characteristic. That is, in 13 years, we have had 9 governments. That in itself makes us fragile. It doesn't matter if they were all fantastic leaders or if they were not fantastic leaders. The fact that we have had 9 turnovers with different philosophies, with different ways of looking at the world, that has impacted our ability to be resilient.